So the big tax question is this: how do wealthy people keep their money working for them when selling their business, real estate, or other highly appreciated assets without paying hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars in tax? What if we, as business and real estate owners who have poured blood, sweat, and tears to growing our wealth, and who didn't hire expensive tax attorneys and CPAs to map out an exit strategy, knew their secrets? Instead of recreating the wheel, why can't we just model the way they deferred 30 to 50% in tax, paid off debt, funded their next business dream, and most importantly, leave a financial legacy to give to the causes we believe in most? What if their secrets weren't complicated at all, and you just need a guide who is a few steps ahead of you? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Brett Swarts, and welcome to Capital Gains Tax Solutions.
Welcome to the Build It to Billions podcast, where we guide successful entrepreneurs and investors on their journey from millions to billions. We believe that the key to scaling your business and compounding your wealth starts every day with a mindset and practice of stewardship over ownership and applying billionaire biblical principles. Our ultimate goal: to help you scale and compound your wealth and life so you can give more or all of it away to the MVPs, which are the most vulnerable people. I'm your host today, Brent Silberbauer, and I'm filling in for Brett Swarts. In every episode, we feature some of the world's top entrepreneurs, millionaires, and billionaires. They share their principles, wisdom, and success, providing each of us with insights that we need to reach the next level of success, faith, and impact. And I'm excited about our next guest, Stewart Heath. Stewart, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brent. Thanks for having me.
Great. I want to share a little bit about you before we get into this. Stewart Heath founded the Harvard Grace Corporation in 2010, which has since expanded into the Harvard Grace Capital. HG Corporation still provides fractional C-level executive services to clients as well as general business consulting. Heath also sits on several boards, including HGC, Winsome Truth, The Shepherd's Call, and Second Chance Sober Living. In 2016, Heath was recognized as a finalist in the Nashville Business Journal's CFO Awards. Currently, Heath holds several fractional CFO positions and so much more. Heath, Stewart, for our listeners getting to know you, what's something that you're really interested in and your current focus right now?
Well, kind of like we were talking about in the green room, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
We're just feeling kind of blessed because of the investment thesis that we've pursued in our real estate transactions so far in the last few years. The industry's really been beat up a lot in the last couple of years since the dramatic interest rate rise that began in 2022. And our thesis has seemed to weather this really pretty well. So we've become a real believer in investment theses and feel like the one that we've picked, while we call it boring, it's actually having great success. We just closed another deal Friday on sort of the same wash, rinse, repeat investment thesis, if you would, that we've utilized. So.
Great. Okay. And for our listeners, share a little bit about your investment thesis. Can you share a little bit of details about kind of what your thesis is?
Yeah, sure. Logical question. So our investment thesis is to buy stabilized, cash flowing assets that will throw off a minimum in year one of 5% cash on cash return, which a lot of people back in the day were comparing that to their CDs they were getting. And 5%, that's not much. Yeah, but when you look at the fact that the tax advantages, tax features, tax benefits, whatever you want to call it, will wipe out that income for the first 3 years, that turns that 5% into an easy 8%, maybe more, through depreciation and other items. So, the asset class matters. While we are big fans of multifamily, we don't do multifamily, primarily for the reason that it violates that sort of number one rule, that we can't buy it at a price that will throw off cash on cash in year one. There's always a lot of competition on multifamily deals. The price gets bid up because of that. So most of what we've bought since 2022 is office buildings, medical office, some retail, and some storage. And we focus on a geography, not necessarily an asset class. We're all just a bunch of old finance guys, and so if the numbers work, we kind of like the asset. And if it's close enough in our geography, then we know we can manage it well. And so our geography is Nashville to Birmingham, and so that's kind of what we focus on. Multi-tenant. We don't do anything that's single tenant, and we don't do floating rate debt. We don't do development. We don't do value adds. We try to eliminate all risks except for vacancy risk. So that's our thesis.
All right. So your thesis sounds like invest in the boring assets that have the 5% cash on cash return in year one. And it seems as you say that there's a conviction behind that. There is probably some stories behind that. Usually people don't set out, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to invest in boring assets. Usually it sounds like that's something that you get to after some lessons learned. How did you arrive at that? What are some of the lessons that got you to say, you know what, we're going to only invest in boring assets? Can you share a little bit about how you arrived to that thesis?
Yeah, I've already mentioned that how old we all are over here. So yeah,
Okay.
we've definitely have the lessons earned, and actually our motto for the whole company is called "Boring is Beautiful," because boring just throws off cash every quarter, and we love that. But lessons learned, back in, my lessons really go back to the great financial crisis, 2008, 9, and 10, where I was doing development. I was using a maximum amount of debt I could possibly get my hands on. And the biggest lesson learned, frankly, is that when you don't know what you don't know. And, back in the day, and I should have known. I'm a CPA. I've been a CPA for 40 years. But back in the 2000s, everything was going up and up and up. And I would buy one property and wait a year, get a new appraisal, refinance that, pull cash out, go buy another property. And somebody's got a term for that. I forget what it is. But everything has just got maximum debt on it all the time. And then as I think Warren Buffett said, the merry-go-round stopped, and it stopped in the middle of 2008, right in the middle of that presidential election with John McCain and Barack Obama. And when the credit market stopped, all asset prices, just sort of are cut in half or worse. Because if you can't borrow against it, you're not going to get the price. All of that recovered. By 2010, people who had cash were buying some great bargains, and then asset prices returned to, I guess, what was called normal as credit became available again. And so the lesson learned is, again, you don't know what you don't know, and you got to have reserves. And so we build reserves into every deal that we do. I usually calculate that at 12 months of the mortgage payments, which is far more. We've never really had to dip into our reserves. People say, well, that hurts your return. Yeah, but it doesn't hurt my returns near as much as losing the asset and giving it back to the bank. And it hurts my returns because there's cash sitting there doing nothing. We earn a little whatever interest we can get on that, but I'm protected, the investors are protected, and frankly, the asset's protected. Because when I went back and looked at everything I had put together, if I'd had reserves of 1% of my appraised value portfolio back in the day, I'd probably still have some of those assets. But I had, when the world came to an end, I had no, I had no wiggle room, had nowhere to go. Lines of credit were closed, back during the day. And if you're relying on the bank for your emergency liquidity, it may not be there when you have the emergency because of a lot of factors. So, Yeah, lessons learned. I mentioned about only doing multi-tenant. Fortunately,
Yeah.
that was a lesson I didn't have to learn. I watched some other investors learn that one. They bought a bunch of these single tenant, like convenience
Mm.
store type deals. I don't want to mention any names, but back during the great financial crisis, one of those
Yeah.
chains went through and closed 1,000 stores.
Yeah.
And what do you do with with an empty store?
Hmm.
Can you convert it to a liquor store? Will somebody else come along and pick it up? A lot of times they're in good locations, and sometimes they're not. So
Yeah.
anyway, there might be some exceptions to the single asset rule, but it just depends. It really just depends on who the tenant is and that tenant quality, credit quality.
Yeah, well, gosh, it seems like you have gone to the school of hard knocks, and I've heard
I
that
have.
so many times that 2008, 2009 changed investors' lives forever, and it
Yep.
was back to the fundamentals. And it sounds like that's where the boring is beautiful probably came from.
Boring is beautiful. Yeah, that is
Boring is
exactly right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless you like cash flow, and then there's nothing boring about it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are your returns? I mean, you have some syndications that are going. What are so is your minimum return 5% cash on cash year one, and then with the tax benefits and everything that you're saying that turns to 8? Is that kind of like the minimum? Have you seen like anything that outsizes those types of returns in this current market? Seems like there's a lot of distress. Seems like especially you mentioned office. There's a lot about office being in, distressful in major metropolitan areas, especially. Have you
yeah,
seen some of those things come on the market at discounted rates and that kind of a thing? Talk a little bit about that.
yeah, we have. And office is a completely misunderstood asset class. So,
Okay.
office has probably six major sub markets, subclasses like
Right.
medical office.
Right.
Medical office is one that um, has never had any issues. Your doctor's not going remote and he's not coming to see you. So,
Mm.
so medical office is doing fine. The other major one is that we've invested in is what I call suburban office. Some people call it
Okay.
service retail. I like to
Okay.
define it as an office building where the tenants meet their customers there. So this is not central business district. This is not downtown offices,
Yeah.
but they're in the suburban areas. Might be right next to a shopping area, or So this is one where dentists and state farm
Yeah.
agents and mortgage
Yeah.
companies and stuff like that
Yeah.
they put
Yeah.
their offices and things like that. Very stable before, during, and after the pandemic. I know we get a lot of reactions from investors all over the office. Are you crazy? I said, yeah. Yeah. Our very first deal was an office building, and it's throwing off 13.25% cash on cash right now. We're 2.5 years into that deal.
Wow.
Um,
Beautiful.
the one the one we just closed Friday is another suburban office in a Birmingham suburb,
Okay.
and its year one will be an 8.4% cash on cash. And this
Wow.
year, with renewed 100% depreciation, I think that one's equivalent to like a 14% cash on cash return. I don't know. I don't ever really, I don't publish or calculate after tax returns because that really
Hmm.
depends upon the individual investors. But
Correct.
but it's but I do know this: the depreciation is going to cover their income for probably 3 years. So they might be able to use depreciation against other income. They might not, but but I know that our depreciation is going to at least cover their income for 3 years. So
Yeah. Yeah, so it sounds like you've been able to identify, stable office space, and not all office space is created equal. And there's, high density and, the financial district and these kinds of things. You are not investing in that,
we're
but you are
not.
investing in medical, suburban, office space. And it seems like you've really had some big wins in that area. Is there any other, asset type in real estate that you're really liking right now? You're kind of an alternative fund. You're not investing really, I think right now in multifamily, right? Is that correct?
We are not. We do underwrite a lot of multifamily
Hmm.
because I think it's the queen of commercial real estate.
Right.
Where housing goes, everything else goes. I'm not opposed to it. I just have
Yeah.
never, in years now, been able to get the numbers to work for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So, but we got to have it, and it's very key. Uh, so, um, we are doing some storage. I still really like retail. Um,
Mm.
some big box or at least out parcels near big boxes. I particularly like Publix anchored retail,
Okay.
and we're chasing a few of those right now.
Okay.
Publix to me really um, picks good markets, and I like to be near a Publix. And I've never been able to get close to the numbers on a Kroger anchor deal, but Publix builds a little bit smaller stores, and the businesses that want to be around a Publix. I like that tenant mix because that's also really key is who the tenants are. We sort of coined the phrase, whatever business your tenant is in, you're in that business too.
Mm.
And so it really is
Mm.
an extension of credit, and you need to understand their business, like a
Wow.
banker. So,
Wow.
uh, storage is a little bit iffy in the moment. It was soaring
Mm.
high before and during the pandemic. A lot of it got built,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's a little soft.
Mm-hmm.
We happen to have a couple of niche spaces that are specifically for RVs. Well, they were built for RVs, but our main customers are small businesses.
Mm.
So it's almost small bay warehouse type stuff.
Yeah.
We are going to expand one of those through a different partnership, um, and uh, it's storage. You just got to be really careful. To me, it's like a 5 mile radius kind of a market, maybe 3 miles. And if you're
Mm.
okay in that market, you're probably okay. But
Mm-hmm.
nationally, storage is a little soft. So,
Yeah.
but I still like it
So
generally for the long term.
okay, great, Stu. So it sounds like you've taken the lumps, you've learned the lessons, you're investing in cash flowing assets, that you've underwritten. They have reserves. They're generally a safe investment, although all investments have risk. Um, who would you say is your ideal investor? Say they're listening to this podcast. Who do you generally attract, and who are you here for? If you can give me a little bit of insight and kind of like your post persona and kind of the person that you're looking to partner with as an investor.
Yeah, I've always struggled with this question, but I know for marketing purposes, you kind of need to develop the personas. But I practiced as a CPA. I had a CPA practice for more than 30 years, and I like to say, uh, the people that I attract, they're the people that would have been my clients. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and so they're business owners, perhaps entrepreneurs, and I do have a passion for those guys because I've been entrepreneurial my entire career, and I've started many businesses over the and like some of them are even still in business, and some of them we've sold, um, but I guess my soapbox or my passion is for all these guys out there starting their own businesses or driving their own business. Um, you need to diversify your income stream, and as hard as it is, you need to pull off 50 or 100,000 a year, stick in some passive activities, start some other streams of income, so that if something does happen to your main drive, your main gig, you've got some other sources of income.
Hmm.
So diversify your income stream. Diversify that across passive investment companies, across assets, and across asset classes. So that includes doctors and dentists and other business people who may not have started a business, but they bought one and then grew it, and then the entrepreneurs who actually start it's all of these people. Really, it's anybody who wants to have multiple streams of income, because that is what we're driving at providing, is a recurring and increasing stream of cash flow.
Yeah. So it sounds like you're an ideal investor, someone who wants to, add another stream of income into their life. And, they want to invest with someone who knows what they're doing, has had the experience. You talk about your accounting background, underwriting things to a T with reserves. Sounds like you got a good thing going on. And, where can people find you if they want to invest and partner with you?
Best place to find us is at harvardgrace.com. We got all kinds of resources there. You can easily dig around and find my Calendly link, and I do invite anybody and everybody to grab some time with me, because I'll talk about real estate forever. So we're open like that. All of our investors will have my personal cell phone number, and I talk to them, talk to investors every day. We're very open, transparent. But really, I encourage you to check out some of these resources. One of my favorites is the 100 questions you should be asking your passive activity sponsor, and because a lot of people want to do passive and think that it's hands off. Well, it is, but you do have the responsibility to diligence the sponsor of the deal. You don't have to diligence the deal. Yeah. But you need to diligence the sponsor, the guy you're investing with, the one you're trusting. So it's a list of questions. We have another one called the anatomy of a syndication. A lot of people don't know what that word means. It's really quite simple. It's nothing but a group of people that get together and form a syndicate with the amount of equity to go do a deal. So we talk about all of our terminology to try to take the intimidation factor out of it, take the lawyerisms out of it, and just make it where everybody can understand it, because it really is kind of simple. Not much different than buying a stock, and we're probably a whole lot more transparent. So, but yes, please check out the website, book some time, check out our resources, join our email list. So we put out content every week.
Yeah, I've been to your website. It seems like you do go on. There's a number of different podcasts on there. There's a number of different resources on there. It's a really great place. So once again, for the listeners who are listening, harvardgrace.com. Go check out Stewart and all the resources there. It sounds like you have a lot of really great resources.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we're about to finish up. What's that?
We work hard at that to put out good material. So.
Excellent. Well, we're about to get into the lightning round. Before we do want to just share a little bit about Capital Gains Tax Solutions. So Build It to Billions is, basically powered by Capital Gains Tax Solutions. And what it is it helps people, investors, develop an exit strategy for highly appreciated assets. Stewart, I'm sure you've seen, assets where it has been depreciated down to, next to nothing. And, someone wants to, I want to take my capital out and go invest in, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or maybe they don't want to do a 1031 exchange. And I'm sure you've seen some of those capital gains get pretty ugly on some of those assets. Has that ever happened?
Oh, yeah. We helped an investor out just this year by helping them structure. And we were using 1031s. Yeah. But I know y'all have got some good solutions too. So.
Yeah, and 1031 exchange is great. 45 days to identify, 180 days to close, defer 100% of the gains, like kind real estate. There are some of those limiting factors, though, that can sometimes make it a little bit stressful. It's kind of like they characterize it as a Blockbuster versus Netflix, whereas what they do is they create a trust coupled with an installment sale, and it allows you to defer 100% of the capital gains and also just go into any type of investment. You could hold it in one market for 6 months. You don't have to reinvest it or identify in 45 days. You can, put it in T-bills, wait 2 years, and then redeploy the capital into real estate, ground up construction, new business ventures, basically any investment. So it is a pretty great thing that they have going on. These guys are the Navy SEALs of capital gains exit strategies. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. The founder has a book there on building a capital gains tax exit plan. It really is an awesome thing if you have a highly appreciated asset that you do want to liquidate or exchange out of without using a 1031 exchange. So there is that. All right, David, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am ready.
All right, cool. So we have a few questions. First one, we're going to come at a rapid fire. If you can go back to your 20-year-old self, what's the number one thing that you would tell yourself to do?
To find a get-rich-slow plan rather than a get-rich-quick plan.
Yeah, or maybe invest in boring assets. Okay, very good. What's the number one book you have recommended or gifted in the past year?
Past year, I've really become a fan of Who Not How. I think it's by Dan Sullivan. I know it's very popular, but being an entrepreneur, I have to do everything myself, and I have to understand it. But it's completely unscalable. You got to figure out who needs to do it, not how to do it.
Exactly. I read that book also this year. Very good. What are you most curious about?
Oh, interesting. I guess I'm most curious about what's coming in the next few years as far as interest rates in the financial markets. I know that makes me sound like a geek, but I follow it all the time. We are very much in interesting times these days, and a lot of things don't make sense. So I'm most curious about the direction of interest rates.
Yeah, me as well. How do you stay disciplined and healthy currently?
That's a really good question. Just closed a deal Friday, and I re-upped that for the fourth quarter. I'm focusing on all of my disciplines, both in business and personal and fitness. And so started out this morning with my 2-mile walk, and we'll do my weight workout later today, and I'm starting to track all of my food as well. So
wow,
it ain't fun.
It ain't fun. Yep. Okay, what's the number one way you're using ChatGPT or other AI systems?
We do put out an awful lot of content every week and every month, and so I've been using it to help me create that content. It's far easier to be in editing mode than it is in creation mode, and so it helps you skip over that creation piece.
Excellent. What's your favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Man, I've heard that before. That's a great one. That's one for the ages. And lastly, what is the best way that you practice stewardship mindset over ownership mindset?
We are stewards. I recognize that. We believe that God owns everything.
Yes.
And we try to use these real estate investments that we are stewarding also as ways to reach people for the kingdom. So we employ chaplains, if you would, with tenants' permission to go in and service and minister to all the employees and the tenants at each of our building. So we do that, as well as personal and financial stewardship and tithing and things like that. So
wow. Excellent. Amazing. Well, Stewart, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you one last time, what's the best place to find you?
HarvardGrace.com, HarvardGrace.com. You can find me, you can find our resources, and if you get there, we can connect.
All right, great. Thanks again, Stewart. I also want to thank all the listeners and the viewers of the Build It to Billions podcast and Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast and YouTube channels. As a reminder, we are here to help you on this journey to go from millions to billions so we can give more or all of it away to help the most valuable, most vulnerable people among us. We hope that you enjoyed today's guest and content. Please rate, review, and share with someone that this could impact. And if you have a highly appreciated asset with massive capital gains coming up, please go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and get connected with the team there. Thank you, everyone, and make it a great day.
You have just listened to another information-packed episode of Capital Gains Tax Solutions with Brett Swarts. We hope you enjoyed today's show and found it helpful. Visit capitalgainstaxsolutions.com to access the show notes and to access more resources. Don't forget to leave a review and join us again next time.